This is Gemara Avodah Zarah, Daf Tes, and we are holding on Chesam and Beis. We're about 12 lines from the wide lines. The first word on the line is Avarna Deini Lefnei Avdoi. And we're in the middle of the discussion how the Romans conquered the Greeks. And now for 26 subsequent years, the Romans kept their promise, not conquering, not subjugating the Yidden. Says the Gemara, where do we know this is true? Esrin v'sheish shnein dekamu behem nusayu b'hadi Yisrael minolan. Where do we know that the Romans kept their word to the Yidden for 26 years? The Amar Rav Kahana teaches Rav Kahana. Kishachala Rav Yishmael Rav Yisir Yishmael Rav Yisi took sick. Shalchulei Rabbi. Shalchule, the Rabbanan sent him. Rabbi Amar Lanu Shnayim Ushlesh Dvarim. Rabbi teaches 2 or 3 things. She'amar Talanu Mishum Avicha. You learn from your father. Amar Lui responded. Meyo Shmonim Shana Kodesh Nechar Avayis. 180 years before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. Pashta Machzor Shal Yisrael. The evil kingdom, the Romans, will extend the rule over the Yidden. Pei Shana for 80 years. Ad Lochar Avayis for the Chorban. There's going to be Toma on those living in the Eretz Ha'amin, Va'alkleis Chuches and Ankleis Chuches. Memshan, of course, we're getting closer and closer to the Chorban, Adl Charva Ba'is, 40 years prior, Kolsa Sanhedrin, V'yashula Bechanos, and Sanhedrin is no longer going to be in the Beis Hamikdash, they're going to be seated on a place called Chanos. Says the Gemara, Lamai Hilchasa. What relevance is this? Says the Gemara. On the first very wide line, what relevance is it that the Sanhedrin changed the location? Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi teaches Rav Yitzchak bar Rav Dimi Loimer to teach us Shlodanu Dine Kinasis. Says the Gemara, you know why? Because teaches the Gemara, Shlodanu Dine Kinasais, that since Sanhedrin are no longer been Mekaimai, they're not going to judge Kinasais. Dine Kinasais al Gedaitach. I've Rav Yudah Merav. Param Zacharai Salish Lato. Even what was his name? Rav Yehuda ben Bava Shalmaliu, if not for him. Nichachu Dine Kinasai Yisrael. They would have forgotten all Dini Kinasa. He says, they really would have forgotten it. On the third wide line, Ligarsinu, but we just teach it to them. Ella, Rav Yud ben Bava taught us, Balu Dini Kinasa Israel. Rather, Rav Yud ben Bava, if he didn't do what he did, the Kinasais would have been batal from Klal Yisrael. They would have no longer applied Kinasais. So what did Rav Yud ben Bava do? The evil Romans made a decree. Anyone who gives smicha will be killed. Anyone who receives smicha yarik. And a city, and a city in which there is a smicha held in it will be destroyed. Will be uprooted. Harim Gedailim, if this sounds familiar, we had this Gemara in Sanhedrin. He sat between 2 big mountains. Between 2 cities, between Beis Chumish, Havas, between Usha L'Shifram, between Usha and Shifaram. V'samach Sham, and he gave smicha to whom? Chamisha Zekenim. Who are the 5 Chamisha Zekenim? Who are the 5 Zekenim? Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosi, Rav Shimon, Rav Elazar ben Shamua, Rav Avya Ma'asav Yadon, Avram Nechemya 6. Kiman Sheikiru Ba'ivim, when the Romans realized Amr Lahem, says Rav Yudah ben Baba to these Talmidim, Be'anai, my children, Ratzu, run. Amru Lai, they said, Rabbi, V'ata Mati Alecha, what will be with you? Amr Lahem, Arinu Muta Lefnehem, Kevin, he says, I'm staying here. I'm going to be like a rak that you cannot overturn it. I will not run away. Amru, they said, Lo zazu misham. So the Talmidim said, Amru, they said over what happened. Lo zazu misham, the Romans did not leave. Lolni Aishal Barzal Rahman al the Romans made and pierced him with 300 iron spears. V'asa legufa, and they made his body into kekivra, like a sieve. But he accomplished that now there were Zekanim to continue, and now there will still be Kanasais in Klal Yisrael. But says the Gemara, what do we see? We see that even prior to the 40 years before the Chorban, even before the Sanhedrin moved, there were no more Kanasais. Amr Amnacham Yitzchak. So what's the chilik? Why do we care that the Sanhedrin moves locations? Loitema dine Kanasais Ella Shodanu dine Nefashais. My timer came with the Chazan of Ishlu Reichson. They saw there were a lot of murderers. There were a lot of murderers, and they saw they were not able to judge all of them. Amru Mutav Nigli Bimakam Lamakayim. It's better that we go ourselves from place to place, so we don't have to make so many people chayiv. What do we learn out from there? That the place of the Sanhedrin Gadol affects if they would not be able to convict people. As the last Rashi teaches, hamakom goyim to what? L'chayiv hanidam. If the Sanhedrin is not b'mkaimai, lo yadainu. Continues the Gemara. Mea ushmainim. So we started off today teaching of the 26 years that the Romans were faithful to the Yidden. To get to that number, we learned Rabbi Shmuel, the name of his father, Rabbi Yaisi, that when did the Roman rule begin? 180 years prior to the Chorban. Says the Gemara, the last line of Chesem Beis, Meo Shmanim V'Suloi was 180 no more. I Vatani Rabbi Yaisi Rabbi Yaisi Rabbi learned as we turn over to Tes Amid Aleph Malchus. Here we go. Malchus Pras Bifnei Abayish Shloishim V'Arbayim Shana. Malchus Pras ruled Eretz Yisrael, the Persians, for 34 years. Malchus Yavan, the Greeks, Bifnei Abayis, ruled for how long? Mea Ushmainim Shana, 180 years. Malchus Chashmonai Bifnei Abayis, Mea Vishalosh, 103. Malchus Beis Ordis, Mea Vishalosh, 103. Kanveilach Suva Chashav, go and calculate Kama Shanim, Achra Chorban Abayis. From there, go on and calculate how many years are there after the Chorban. So Alma explains the Gemara, Matan Vishisavu. We see that the Romans were really there for 206 years. And you're telling me it's only 180? So explains the Gemara, Ella Esrim Vishish Shneim, it must be the difference between 180 and 206 is what? 26. Must be these are the 26 coming bim nice about the Yisrael that yes, the Romans were ruling, but those 26 years they were not bothering the Yidden. And they did not subjugate the Yidden. Because they look a chashav lehu, they were not counted. In this phrase, like we said, when the evil Romans ruled over the Yidden, and that proves our point of 26 years. On the first white line, Amra Papa. If this Tana is not sure, he doesn't know the specific number of years. L'shayle, l'safra kama Yosef, he should ask a scribe how many years he's writing as a date in a document. Kama, Kosif, v'nitfei alayu esr mishnin, and add 20 years. Umishkach le'lechumrei. And then what will happen? He'll get to the result. V'simanech zeli esrim shana be'veis cha. This is my 20 years in your house. So we add on 20, we'll get to the right number. Rapapa continues in the reverse, that he tell you Safra if a sefer doesn't know, Nishal Tana Kama Chashif. The opposite, he should ask Tana how many years there are, V'nivsa minayo esrim mishnin, and then subtract 20 years, and what? And he'll get to the result. V'simanach, and what is the simin? Safra b'tzira tana teisva. A safar, a sefer, is sparing, whereas a tana teisva, tana, increases. Continues the Gemara Tana Devei Eliyahu. Moving over to the 6th wide line. Tana Devei Eliyahu. Sheishes alafim shana havi oilam. The world is 6,000 years. Will be 6,000 years, I should say. Shnei alafim tahu. For the first 2,000, the world was desolate. Shnei alafim. The next 2,000 were Torah. Shnei alaf. The next 2,000 was Mashiach. Of course, the 2,000 is where we live of Torah, then Mashiach. Pavanosenu sherabu yatsu mehen masha yatsu mehen. And due to our aveiros, the years have gone. We're losing out to the years of Mashiach. Mashiach should have come. We're reading the Alpayim of Mashiach, but Mashiach is not here yet. Shnei alafim Torah meimasa. He says, Gemara, when did the 2,000 years of Torah begin? Inemi matan Torah. But says the Gemara, if we're telling me from Matan Torah until now, it's not yet 2,000 years. Why? Because when you compute the years from the creation to Matan Torah, Trei Alfi Parati Dahai Alpha Hu Dahave, then we find that it's 2 plus a few years of the third. So it's going to be a few years into the 3,000 year, and therefore it was not a full 2,000 years, says the Gemara. Ella, so rather explains the Gemara, when the pasuk says the souls are made in Charan, Ugimiri, we learned Avram Vayishaita Bar Chamshin and Train Havoy. Avram Avinu was 52. That's when the Alpayim of Torah began. Proves the Gemara, Kama Basrin. Says the Gemara, how many years Midatani Tana? How many years from the 2,000 years of Torah that the Tana mentioned are lacking? Arba Meos, Varbaim Mitmanya, 448. Kimainisbu, when you look into it, Shanava, Kimainisbe, Mehanefsha Asu Bacharan, and Matan Torah. For when the Torah says the line by Avram Avinu, for the souls that he made in Charan, until Matan Torah, how long is that? Explains the Gemara, Arba Meav, Arba Mitzmani Shana, Havan, that is the 448 years, and that's how we get to the Alpayim of Torah. If you don't know what year it is, and what should he do? We should add on 48. And he'll add, and it finds the result, and what was the siman? As we turn over to Tesam Beis, Arbaim Ushmainim Ir, quoting the pasuk, 48 cities. V'itayi Safri, and the Sefer makes a mistake, then Nishaila, he should ask the Tana, the reverse. He should ask the Tana Kama Katan, even if Asr Minayu, how many? Arbaim Ushmainim. Also, 48, Mishkachlu L'chamre, you'll get the result. V'simanach Safra Basira, Tana Taisva, as we said before. Says the Gemara, Amar Ravuna Breid Rav Yeshua. Hi manzol yada kame shnei b'shavuahu. Someone does not know what is the year in the 7-year Shemitah cycle. So you know what year it is. You know what year it is after the Chorban, but you don't know, is this year Shemitah, is next year Shemitah, what do you do now? Says the Gemara, Oimi nitfei chad shata. Add 1 year. And then count in the terms of hundreds to know where you are for Yovel. Uprate b'shavua, and then count into the specific number in the 7-year cycle. V'nishkal mimeya trei. So what do? You take 2 years from each 100. V'neshadye aprate, and add them to a number. V'neshchavinu leprate b'shavua, and then divide that by 7. And v'yada kame shnei b'shavua, and thereby you'll come up with what is the year in the 7-year cycle. A little bit of long arithmetic over here. V'simanayich kizesh nesayim hara of b'kerev haaretz. Amar Rav Chanina. With this we're going to conclude. Echad arba meos the chorban habayis. After 400 years of the chorban, someone says, Buy a field of 1,000 dinar for 1 dinar. Loi tikach. Do not buy it. Why loi tikach? Why should you not buy it? 1 second. No, I lost the place. Excuse me. Why should you not buy it? Because he's saying that the coast will end after 400 years, and therefore there's no purpose of buying it. All the land is going to be re-divided. We learned in a Mishnah after 4,200 and, excuse me, my page keeps on disappearing. One more time. After 4,231 years of the creation of the world, the Brias Ailam, if someone will say, the difference is 3 years. For the Bryce adds in 3 years to the date of Rav Chanina, and these are just figuring out when it would be in Moshe Mashiach, when it's purposeless at that point to buy a field. We'll stop over here. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmaya.